Morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling this morning? All pumped up? Ready? Not too late at night? Welcome, everyone. Now, I've got to go back to the formalities. We have some new people who have joined us today. So for you old ones, you're going to hear a little bit of what you heard yesterday. But welcome, everyone, to the Wildlife Living Soils Farming for the Future of the Planet. And I think that's what it's all about. We're part of the planet, and the environment's part of the planet. And today, we're going to focus. Yesterday we did soils and we were on the property for the field day. Today we have Graham and Ray, animal and human health, how they're linked. And I went, oh wow, because that was meant to be taken out. We changed the title. But really and truly, I think everyone on this planet Earth is linked together. So subtly we are linked, but that was a bit of a mistake. Now, Wildlife Living Soils, this is our 10th anniversary, so it's a very exciting year for us and a great event to celebrate, because 10 years ago when we started Wildlife Living Soils, it was fairly out there. Everyone thought we were a little bit crazy what we were doing, saying that there was life in the soil, particularly when the DPI and the CSIRO and who else, all the authorities didn't believe that the microbiology in the soil had a role, because we'd come to believe that everything could be just put in as an input. So today we're going to link how the health of our soil is related to human health as well as animal health as well. So as I say, it is all linked in many, many ways. We run Milgadara, that's where we were yesterday on the field day. So 11 years ago we started to adopt biological agriculture, and we've made some wonderful steps forward. This rain is just a blessing, because it was probably a little drier in the paddock, yesterday when we dug up than what we thought. So this is fantastic. But definitely the changes that we've seen in our soil and the plant, and everyone witnessed that yesterday. And we're not saying we're there yet. So this is a journey that we take, because if we've taken 80 years or more to degrade our soils, we're not going to get them back there in, even 10 years. You're certainly improving and get results, as everyone who's doing it knows, but it's going to still take time to build that organic carbon and the mineral balance and the plant health. And I think what we've really found yesterday from Hughes and everyone speaking about trace minerals, that it's just not your macro minerals that we worried about. We're looking at all the macro and the trace elements as well. So both Bill and I are fourth generation farmers. I grew up on the north of Young on a property with my parents. Milgadara, Daley's moved there in when was it? 1911 it was. So they've been there over 100 years. And of course our management practices have changed towards our country as well. There was 30 draft horses, and now we've got these big machines that we drive over and do things much more easily. But I do think back then our soils were more resilient than they are now. Why we needed to change, you can see on the right, if I can find my pointer, is we had this compacted layer. I might get new batteries in this, I think, before Graham starts. Oh, there it is. About 10 inches down. And obviously it was a plough pan. The bottom photo is in the drought. So we had things we had to change. So we started using, I got this message from my illness that, I had to heal the soils and help others, we had to have a look at what we were really doing. So we started to use fertilizers that were going to actually support the life in the soil and not destroy it like so many of our habits do. So, and it was in 2006 then we introduced the humus compost. We have a biodynamic tower, one of Hughes' towers, to emit subtle energies over the property, and that's a whole other topic on its own. We use extracted compost teas, we do stubble digestion. So instead of just doing lime and single super, which we'd done for probably 80, 100 years of the single super, but 28 years we'd actually limed Milgadara, and when we did the 14 soil tests, we didn't have any calcium. It was like, where was it? And we'd also displaced our magnesium. So two of my favourite words that came out of this were balance and monitor. We have to balance it, but we have to keep monitoring all the time. We just can't expect to put something on. And we'd gone from recipe farming, and as you all know, everyone who's practicing this, you do have to start to think a little more. There's a little bit of a brain thing of going instead of, well, I'll just do that because that's what's meant to be done. You observe, you monitor, you make decisions. So it's not just throw that on and hope for a good result. So it was this direction. Bill did a biodynamics course before I got sick. It was in 1995. But he came back, he said, we've got to put manure in a cow horn and bury it. I went, what? You know, this sounded all a bit out there in 1995 for us, so we didn't adopt anything. So it wasn't until my illness in 2001, and I got this message that I found Nutritech Solutions on the web and said, this is the way we've got to go. So I think a lot of people are thinking, my favourite saying is, you can't show people what's around the corner till they reach the corner. I believe you're all at the corner. Everyone here is at the corner and questioning. And because I had chronic fatigue for 5.5 years, to the ones who weren't at the corner, I didn't have the energy to try and convert them. So the people who have come to Wild Living Soils are always ones at the corner and ready to go round, because you've had a paradigm shift in your thinking and you do want to do something differently. So we work with the ones ready to start. So after this guided message, we decided we'd start this business. And WILAD, by the way, is Daley backwards, if you haven't worked it out. I didn't work it out even when I was going out with Bill 38 years ago. And we were putting life back into the land, because that's what we thought we needed to do. And we did, because no one looked at the microbiology. But as I said yesterday, we've got now a bigger agenda. You know, we've got, if you believe in climate change, and I coined a quote, is climate change happening, or are we adapting to a change in climate that's already happened? And I think we're adapting to the change. You know, whether is climate change, who knows? But I think sometimes we're chasing our tails. We've done the damage to our soils, now we've got to catch up. And we're actually, farmers, contributing huge amounts of that carbon dioxide into the soil. You know, we talk about food security now, population explosion, so really, and the whole planet health. So now, and human health, I should have mentioned that, because I think that is one of the most important things. So really our mandate has grown to what we just started as, of putting life back into the land. But guess where it all starts? It starts in the soil. And as we know, when the soil fails, so does every civilization. So, you know, I'm sure out there now, they think GM's going to feed the world. So we're going to produce more. And it's showing that it doesn't produce more. So the rates, but I've now said the other day, it was a bit cheeky of me, I suppose. I said, well, they probably will feed the world, because they'll kill half of them and they'll only have to feed half. And then they'll say they're a success, because it's so bad for all of us. 2005, we studied the humus composting in America, and we brought that technology to Australia. We now have 43 of these units, 42 in Australia, 1 in New Zealand, and we are teaching other people how to make a high quality fertiliser from local waste to make local fertiliser for local food production. Sorry, this has got a mind of its own. This is pretty exciting, because my message, remember, was to heal the soils but help others. So we have spread our knowledge around Australia to help other people in all different soil types and all different enterprises to produce their own fertiliser. And we've got a few Turner owners here, actually. We've got Cam, we've got Andrew, we've got Simone Jolliffe. Is there anyone else I've missed? Oh, Roy Flett, yep, in Chinchilla. So Roy's one of those ones up there. And don't count them, they're not right. So they're coming back still. We've got another one up the back, the Ballas, are about to start. So we get these people to be able to understand how to produce a high quality, I call it a compost, but it really should be called a fertiliser rather than a compost. So the nutritional deficiencies are coming through into our animal production. And even though Bill's going to talk more on animal productivity and being, you know, they're getting that enterprise going, but we now know that the nutrition in our pastures is related to the health of animals. Has anyone seen that who's doing this already? You know, you get your soils better, your pastures are better, and your animal health's better. And we've certainly experienced it as well. So poor nutrition in pastures harms animal longevity and productivity. So Simone's in dairying, she's going to speak today, and, you know, it's about keeping that animal alive for a lot longer and a lot healthier. Parasite resistance. You know, farmers depend on drenches. It occurs on 90% of properties. And a lot of this is happening because of imbalance in the soils and trace mineral deficiencies. And it was interesting, Hugh was showing us yesterday that we know we've got a copper deficiency still. Even though we're working on it, we still have zinc and copper deficiency and boron deficiency. but it was interesting to see it coming out in the plant as that purpling. So at this point it could take another 20 years or more before a new drench group is developed because of all this drench resistance. And I think we talked about this yesterday, is that the more disease we get and the insects, we're just developing bigger band-aids all the time. And to wipe these 388 resistant weeds, remember, and 577 resistant pests now. So we just got to make bigger hammers and bigger band-aids, basically. And I don't think that's the way to go. We also know that the nutritional value of our food has declined. We don't have a study from Australia, but the US and the UK have seen up to a 76% decline in trace minerals in the fruit and vegetables between 1940 and 1991. So we have both Graham and Ray speaking today. They're going to be touching on the human health aspect, but definitely the food we eat today is not as nutritional as it was for my mum, who's 87, back in those days as well. And, you know, even if you eat fresh, what is fresh food, it doesn't have the minerals. It's sprayed a lot with chemicals. We have a lot of veggie growers, so I know what's going on their vegetables as well in the form of chemicals. But, you know, I think another big problem that we have is that a lot of kids aren't even eating the vegetables. You know, they're eating all this processed food that they can fast food. So, I mean, first step is we have to get them to eat vegetables and then to get them aware of the nutritional value of the vegetables. So here again, between 1950 and 2010, the calcium in the US broccoli dropped from 130 to 48. Today, the calcium in Australia's broccoli is even lower than that at only 36. So is this why we've got to eat more? Is this why we're taking more supplementation? Is this why we're a sicker nation? As I said to you yesterday, I hope you go away from here with more questions than what you came with, because you're opening up your mind to think what is going on and how can I remedy it. And this will be covered, I'm sure, by Ray as well, that nutritional deficiencies cause most of our prevalent perilous chronic diseases: diabetic, stroke, high blood pressure, bone loss, heart disease, obesity, loss of vision and dementia. Who wants any of those? You know, we're sitting here and we don't want those. So what have we got to eat? More nutritional food. Then we get all of the poisons that are in the fertilisers that we're using. Arsenic, mercury, lead. In Victoria, 25 chemical fertilisers were sampled for heavy metals. Of 18, 83% contained cadmium at a level, it had a warning label. And yet you farmers go out there and sniff it, not sniff it, but you're pouring it in and augering it in, and there's a dust coming off, and no one realises the dangers of it. I was a heavy metal recipient with the chronic fatigue, so I was full of arsenic, and it came from arsenical sheep dips. And who can still smell the yellow sheep from the arsenical sheep dips? I can still see it and smell it. You know, I was cadmium, mercury. We've had all our fillings removed. So, but it's in the conventional fertilisers that we're using, and it's poisoning us. Now this is rather scary, this one. There are more than 7,200 registered biocide products in Australia. The very name bio for life and side for death indicates it's to kill life. Yet Australia hasn't tested most of these chemicals, including widely used ones like glyphosate, 2,4-D, atrazine, diuron and paraquat. The tests only cover the active ingredient, not the registered product as a whole, which is a chemical cocktail. How scary. So Europe has banned more than 80 of the pesticides registered in Australia. At least 17 pesticides registered in Australia are probably known as probable carcinogens, 48 are potential hormone disruptors, and more than 20 of Australia's pesticides have been classified as either extremely or hazardously dangerous by the WHO. But get this, 8 chemicals with known safety risks have been under review by our regulators for more than 13 years, and some of them for 15 years. Wow, I mean, what's happening in the world? And here are a few of the worst offenders and what they do to your body. So these things are deemed as safe-ish to use. I still can't believe that you've got to put them in a shed, put a skull and crossbone on them, but then you're allowed to put them in an aeroplane and spray them over everyone. But they say, oh, it's a dilution, lower dilution. but they're still dangerous. So pesticides harm animal production as well. So as I say, we're looking at animal and human nutrition here today and the effects of getting soils right, so we don't need to use all these pesticides and insecticides. So stored grain, what you put on your grain, rats eat this pesticide experience decreased sperm density and mobility, testicular atrophy and decreased fertility. Similar effects likely occur in livestock and other farm animals exposed. So I'm going to hand over now to Graham Sage, who's going to give you more enlightening bad news, good news and bad news, I suppose. And if I can find my glasses, I'll read his CV. So today, now, the other thing is, in your books, who did your outcomes and actions yesterday? Who did some actions? Remember yesterday we did some outcomes? I think you did. Come on, energy. You only learn when you're energetic. Who put some outcomes down yesterday? I will hone in on someone in a minute. You did. Who put some actions against it? Tonight there is no alcohol if you're going to be this sleepy tomorrow. So you better load up, boys and girls. Who wrote some actions? Come on, be truthful. You did. Most people. For new people, behind the welcome sheet, there's to put some outcomes of what you'd like to achieve out of this workshop. And then, by the end of the day, we'd actually like you to be able to put some actions that you're going to take towards achieving those outcomes. So, continue with that. The new ones, Andrew and Judah, you're new. These outcomes here, get a pen and try and put some outcomes down. Because knowledge is power, but knowledge without action is useless. So you can sit here today and take this in, but unless you have an action plan to go home and put into place, a lot of it's going to be lost. So put something down. Review it next week. Am I doing it? Because remember, you've got to monitor things as well. I'm a hard taskmaster, but if you want to change and you want to grow in life, you've got to do something about it. It's your responsibility, no one else's. So now, Graham. This is next year, we're going to do more talks around Australia, so we're going to go to you. So don't lose the momentum. We're going to have a paddock muster in your area in 2013. So if anyone's saying, yeah, I've got a few farmers I want to gather together, ensure that you get them together and we can just come and speak to you and look at your soils and come into your area. So we want to localise it a little bit more. I'll just get Graham's PowerPoint up.
Just while Rhonda's doing that, I didn't mention yesterday when we were in the pasture paddock with the stock that we've been monitoring what's been happening with our stock health, and those ewes were drenched last January, late January, early February, and we've done regular worm tests every couple of months since then, and John Manchester and I went out and tested the sheep again only a week ago, and our worm burden is still below 60, which means, you know people with stock are above 200, they say, well, you possibly would need to drench. So we've gone nearly 11 months to 10 months with basically no worms in our stock. And that's really something I've noticed in stock health, that our worm burden in our sheep, which this district at the moment is chronic with drenching. A lot of people, you go to the rural land and technical, they say the worst thing in the district is people having drenched often. So it's really something that we've noticed in our pasture health is the lack of worms.
Before I move on, I'd like to thank all the YLAD team. My husband Bill and I, and there's Daryl, Chloe, Julie and Donna's not here at the moment, but obviously without a team of people you can't put on events like this, and I'd like to thank them very much for being so understanding as the pressure goes on to ramp up an event like this. So thank you very much.